Ladies and gentlemen, logo designers, we're going to do part 3 of our spiel. We're going to learn some more tips and tricks that will hopefully help you do your project faster. All right, question number 1. What can you do with the eraser? Well, if you go to your project and use the eraser tool, and you can click and drag, you can see that it erases stuff. If I go to the nodes, you can see that it really has edited that thing. By the way, you can also go to the eraser tool and you can adjust the width down. So I can make it half as wide, so something like that. Okay, so what can you do with the eraser tool? Actually, not a whole lot, but you can erase stuff. What can you do with the Freehand Line tool? Well, let's take a look. Let's zoom in over here somewhere else. Okay, so let's say we're going to draw something with the Freehand Line tool. Let's make the stroke width a little bit. I don't know what it's doing. Okay, so we'll draw this thing, and you can see that it's a little bit lumpy. All right, so that's one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to use this. It's easy, but it's kind of lumpy. So one thing you can do, notice, let's zoom in on these lumps over here. All right, so one thing you can do is you can select it, and you can go Path, and you can go to Simplify, and you can see it smooths those things out. Another thing you might want to try with this tool is you could change its mode of operation. So there's a Bezier path, there's a Spiro path, and there's a B-spline. This is kind of makes it a little bit interesting to work with. So you can go like that, and then when you go to edit it, oh, see, there's way too many nodes or splines. So again, so you go Path, you can go to Simplify, really simplifies it. So in the B-spline mode, it's a little bit different to work with. You might like it better. But at any rate, you can smooth things out that way. So just some ideas of some things you can do. There might be part of your drawing that's easier to do with the Freehand Line tool. What can you do with the Path Smooth tool? Well, you can smooth out stuff. And it's not just the pencil tool. You can smooth out stuff from the pen tool as well. Okay, so what can you do with the Path Stroke to Path? Well, let's find that out. All right, so let's say we wanted to draw a worm, okay? Well, the one thing about it is it's kind of the same thickness throughout the whole thing. So there might be an easy way to do it. So let's take a look at that. So let's pretend we're trying to draw a worm, and we're going to use, let's delete all this. Delete. No? Delete. Okay, let's go into our zoom tool. We'll hit shift, and we're going to zoom back out. Okay. So let's zoom back in. Let's delete this whole thing. We don't need this anymore. Okay, so we're drawing a worm, but let's just say we decide we're going to do it with the Bezier pen tool. So we're going to click. What am I on here? That's not the Bezier tool. I'm on the wrong thing. Let's go here. Okay, so, and we're going to go back to the Bezier path. Okay, so we click and we drag. We click and we drag. We click and we drag. So we're going to make like a little wormy shape, okay? Not the greatest worm in the world, but it'll do. Okay, so now we're going to give our worm some thickness. So we're going to come over here to our stroke style, and we're going to, let's say 15. All right, so nice and thick like a worm might be. Now the problem is I can't adjust the outside edges, right? There's not really a whole lot I can do on the outside edges, but what I can do is I can click on that thing, and I can go to Path, and I can go Stroke to Path. And what that does, you didn't really notice any difference, but now when I go here, all of a sudden, now I can actually edit the outside. Before, let me hit it, Edit, Undo. Edit, Undo. So before, if I click on this thing, I could only edit inside, okay? But I don't want to edit the inside, I want to edit the outside. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to select it, I'm going to go Path, I'm going to go Stroke to Path. And so now what I can do is I can make, let's make this part pointy. I can give them a little pointy tail, and then I can make this like the little fat part. All the little worms have a little fat part. At any rate, so that could be a handy thing. So like at any rate, so I could also click on this, shift, click on this, and I can make that rounded. Okay, at any rate, so just lots of stuff like that. So there's lots of handy uses for being able to turn the stroke into a path. What can you do with path effects? Well, let's take a look and see. All right, so to demonstrate the path effects, we're going to take a look at something like this. So let's say we want to make some cat scratches on for our logo. So let's see what we could do. So let's zoom out a little bit. So we're no longer making worms. Okay, so we'll delete our worm. All right, we're going to start off doing it kind of the same way as we did. So let's do the beginning of our cat scratch. So we're going to use the Bezier curve tool. So we're going to click and we're going to drag, and then we'll do like the next one. So click and drag and click and drag and click. Okay, so that's some of our cat scratches. So we'll work with this one. So we're going to click on this thing. We're going to give it some thickness. So we'll come over here and we'll say 5 and see if that's enough. Probably not. We'll probably say, let's say 10, just so we can see what it's doing. Okay, so let's zoom in on that. Let's zoom on that thing here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go path, and we're going to go stroke to path so we can edit the outside of it. And so then we're going to go path, and we're going to go to path effects, and then we're going to hit plus, and then you can choose whatever you want, but there's different things you can do. But I'm going to choose roughen, and I'm going to hit add. And so if you look at it, it changed the path, but let's take a look at it. We're going to change this to 20 and hit tab. Change this to 2. Change this to 2. And let's keep playing around with this. Oh, I know. We need to change the number of segments to 20, and that's going to create it red. Let's make it even more. So let's make it 35. So we can start to make that rough. So you can see you can get some rough edges on it like that. Okay, so we're a little bit closer, and you can play around with it a little bit with each of the nodes to get it closer to that. Okay, so some interesting things you can do to change the path. All right, so what can you do with trace bitmaps? Okay, well, let's go back again to our example over here. So let's say we wanted something like this, and we didn't want to have to bother to draw it. Well, but we wanted to get it to work with our artwork. Well, we could actually get this and turn this into a vector drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save the image as, and I'm going to save it into my folder with my name on it. So I'm going to go to B. Miller. I'm going to go to Creative Computers. I'm going to go to Graphic Design, T-shirt logo, and I'm going to save it in my Assets folder. And you need to find one that's a PNG. So I'm going to save that one. Okay, so now let's go back here and give it a shot. So let's double click on this thing so we can see the whole thing. So let's go File, and we're going to import it. And we're going to find that PNG. Again, it seems to work better if it's a PNG. I'm going to use this one right here. Click OK. All right, so let's grab this thing and work with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go path, and we're going to say trace a bitmap. So it's basically going to take that picture and turn it into a vector drawing. And so we have some options that we need to work with. So we don't need 8 colors. So there's only 2 colors. There's black and red. Probably 2 scans. We don't want to smooth it. What else? So we're going to get rid of that. We probably want to remove the background. We don't need the white background. And click OK. And so go ahead and close this. So now if you look at this thing and I go to the nodes, so it's actually editable artwork. So I can actually grab this thing and I can edit it and make it exactly how I want. Okay, so that's super handy. Now, a warning on this. Now you can't just take an entire existing logo and use that as a logo. So what you can do is you can get bits and pieces of your artwork and then combine that into your logo. So your logo has to be unique, but bits and pieces of it you can use that trace bitmap piece of it. So that's super handy. Okay. I think that's. Oh, what can you do with a search for vector? So here's the other thing. In the same way, your artwork has to be unique. But one thing you can do is, let's say you wanted to get a paw as part of your logo. So you could type in vector paw print, And when you search for that, a lot of times you can actually get to these things, and you can actually download either an Illustrator or a Inkscape project. At any rate, either way, you can open that up into your project or add it to your project and use some bits and pieces to create your project. Okay, so some labor-saving efforts. All right, so next, that's it for today, or for this spiel. Go ahead and